Hunters, Sky Sensei here, and today we got a few more dropped weapon skill teasers. So in this video, we're going over the bow and charge blade. I put them together since there isn't too much to cover, so if you only want to see one weapon, check the timestamps below to skip ahead. If this video helps you out or you guys enjoyed it, it would mean so much to me if you guys could give this video a like as well. I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So first up, we have the bow. Now I've really enjoyed Ryze's bow. It's been a lot of fun and has a fantastic counter known as dodge bolt. But with these new skills, Capcom has addressed one of the tougher aspects of bow, and that's sever damage. The new Silk Bind Butcher's Bind now adds a high sever damage attack to your arrow if used appropriately. How it works is that you have to land the first arrow tagged with Iron Silk onto the area of damage, most probably the tail. Following this, you must land a follow-up shot in the same location. If you hit the same body part, both arrows wind up with silk powers and inflict sever damage. If you miss the arrow, the first arrow just disappears, so from what I can see, this may be a very strong sever dealing damage attack, but it comes at a cost of needing proper accuracy and timing. Now in all honesty, I'm not super excited for the skill. Sever is cool, and with this skill, bow can now literally do everything. It's great. We can cut tails, stun, output high damage. It's fantastic. But aside from gathering tail materials, I don't see too much use for this. Going off the head and saving your wire bugs for aerial aim will definitely still be the focus of bow gameplay. Now usually bow does have a decent sever damage from its melee, but the melee has definitely been one of those go out of your way kind of mechanics in Ryze. It's very short ranged and has a big animation, so adding this Silk Bind skill is definitely a great balance for bow. Now speaking of melee, the second skill that they teased today is the Stake Thrust. Now this is a replacement to the regular melee attack, so instead of a slightly horizontal attack, you now have a thrusting attack, which plunges a stake into the monster. If connected, the stake becomes primed to explode when you fire an arrow at the stake, and the explosive damage is actually correlated to the type of arrow shot. So I'm assuming if you charge up to level 4, you'll get a pretty banger damage output. This is definitely a great addition to the bow, and it gives you some reward for actually applying melee damage. Especially in situations where you know you can't fit a full combo in, it'll be really handy to instead get a stake in and then charge up your bow to land an explosive shot. It's also more rewarding for those bow players that are actually up close and personal with the monster. If you're using dodge bolt, you might be very close and you're trying to counter some attacks. You can get this melee in, get the stake in, and then charge up your bow and get some damage. So that's it for the bow. I'm very excited to try this Stake Thrust. I think it's going to be really fun, and the Butcher's Bind will definitely make for some really cool gameplay. Moving on to Charge Blade now. Charge Blade was shown something different than most of the other weapons so far. It appears Charge Blade got some more transition skills to smoothen out its gameplay. If you've seen my Charge Blade tutorial, you'll know my opinion on counter peak performance was that it was mostly a beginner skill. Experienced Charge Blade users didn't have too much use for it since we're pretty experienced in maintaining our files, and it essentially was the same as guard point after that. Don't get me wrong though, in the hands of a good Charge Blade user, it was still a very excellent skill, but I think many of us were looking for something more groundbreaking and gameplay changing, which is where the Axe Hopper shined. The new Silk Bind is the Ready Stance. Now just like counter peak performance, you are positioned into a combined sword and shield protective stance. This skill, just like counter peak performance, enables you to transition into amped or ultra amped element discharge, condensed spinning slash, and condensed element slash. The main differences appear to be that you probably won't get your files filled up anymore, so it might cost one less wire bug to use, but after getting hit, you can transition to axe attacks, which basically makes this a guard point with better transitions. This is actually the big part of it. Currently, your guard point is usually from the sword to axe or axe to sword morph, which usually leaves you in sword mode and you can't do much with your files. The only option for file damage is after a guard point, you'll have to do an amped or ultra amped element discharge, which can be pretty risky and requires a lot of things to go right. Now, with Ready Stance, you can actually guard point attacks with smaller windows and transition straight into an axe element discharge, which I think is going to be the biggest selling point. It's going to give Charge Blade users a lot more flexibility to fit damage in smaller windows instead of waiting for those big openings. This skill will also tie really well with the new switch skill, the Firing Pin, which is a skill that causes file damage from your condensed element slash, or basically your charged sword, to remain on the monster for a longer period of time. The more hits that you do, the more it builds up, and while it does lose stacks over time, the built up condensed energy can be detonated by any axe attack. So the ready stance wire bug can then play a big part here, so where you'll use your sword attacks to charge your files and leave some condensed energy on the monster, ready stance guard point any attack, and then immediately transition into a strong axe element discharge attack to release file damage alongside exploding the condensed energy. This is definitely going to be a lot easier to fit into small windows, so charge blade users, you guys are going to be a lot more busy, but I'm very excited to see this versatile gameplay. So that's it for me today, guys. I'm pretty sure I'm probably missing some details, so be sure to let me know in the comments if we're missing anything. Let everybody know so we all are on the same page. Once Sunbreak releases, I'll be able to do a more thorough breakdown of the new skills, including the stats and the statuses, and I'll also be able to test out different skill matchups for you guys. So be sure to subscribe for when I get those videos out. And that's about it. Until next time, stay safe, be happy, and keep hunting. Sky Sensei's out.